All right, so I'm doing this recorded video today, really in conversation with Juan Baez. Now, I was just talking to him earlier saying I haven't figured out how to record Zoom on split screen. So if somebody knows, put it in the comments because it will save me another Google search. But when he starts talking, you're going to get to see him. So Juan reached out to me because I was on his podcast back in 2018, which I was just saying feels like forever ago now. Obviously, talking about body acceptance and health and wellness, and where Juan comes, his field of expertise is around physical fitness. So he's been phys ed teacher, personal trainer, he's been a chef. So he's been in the whole fitness world, but really takes a more of a body acceptance approach to fitness. And as I understand it, I'm going to give him a minute to talk about it himself, but really in alignment with what I share, which is listening to your body, focusing on movement that feels good and that's supportive to you and your health versus focusing on essentially just trying to sculpt and shape your body size because we're told that that's a particular look. So I wanted to ask you on what led you toward more of this approach, like kind of away from the typical traditional fitness world that we see right now into coming into a more like holistic body acceptance perspective?
Confusion, a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration. I've been a trainer for 20 years, more or less 20 plus years. And working at schools, and I used to work in physical therapy, and I've worked with children and elderly and athletes, and you get to see all of this different realities, which I talk a lot in the book about realities, the importance of understanding who you are and where you are and all of these things. And I started seeing that in the fitness and wellness world, that is sort of like not considered, right? It is assumed that if you want to eat better and you want to get fit and you want to exercise, you have to drop everything in your life, whether you are a children, a child, or you are a mom, or you are a doctor or a nurse. You have 16-hour shifts of work, and it is expected that you go for 3 hours to the gym, with three classes, because the more you do, the better, and all this blah blah blah. And at one point, uh, I was working at this place, and they were doing this transformation challenge kind of thing. And when you work in this kind of environments, you click with people and you get to connect and you get to see how cool people are. And sometimes you get to see people that are extremely beautiful turn into fitness freaks, and into zombies, diet zombies, and people who are actually doing better, and with that challenge or whatnot. But then at the end, well, it wasn't enough. There is more goals to get, and there is, you didn't get to lose the 2 pounds that you needed to lose. And one time I saw this lady like in a corner, in a dark corner at the gym, sobbing, crying after she just got weighted for one of those challenges, right, to see her results. And that was one of those persons. Like I thought, oh, well, this person is so cool. I want to talk to her. And then her husband is so amazing, and they're always sort of like engaged. It's a beautiful couple, and all of a sudden I see her destroyed for 2 pounds. Um, Funny enough, a couple of days before that weighing, her husband came to the gym. He wasn't always there, but he would sometimes come and be with her. And so they were an older couple, and he came and shook our hands, the trainer, to say, hey, thank you, we're doing good, we're going to Disney with our grandchildren and we're having fun, and her knee is not bothering and my back is not bothering, all of these little things, which are the testimonials that we're actually looking for. And to see all that go to hell basically just because of 2 pounds, and I failed my trainer, and I failed my life, and I'm like, my gosh, how do I tell you that you are a very beautiful person? And hey, your husband came here the other day and said all these beautiful things. So how do I tell you that maybe what we're doing here is so effed up? Like what are we doing here? If we're looking for these testimonials to improve people's life, how is it that for 2 pounds you already failed everything and everyone in your life? And so that was a very impacting moment that I said, you know what, this is uh, one of the things that got me out of that place. And also one of the things that said, you know what, I think there's some things to be explored and some things to be said regarding how we are approaching people's health, because we have a big impact in people's health, right? I'm just one trainer, but I've had people who look at me like I'm a god, and oh my God, you're going to save my life and you're going to do this. And I have all my faith in you. And I'm here thinking, shoot, but I'm confused. What do I do? And I don't know you. In 3 months, I can't figure you out. It doesn't work like that. In fact, maybe never I can figure you out. This is something that you have to do on your own. Um, and seeing all of these crazy waters, the diet, the workout, the specific certifications, the pills, all of that aligned with later on me working, which is my actual job as a health and wellness instructor for a certification company, right? Adult education. And so I do personal training certification and nutrition and you research to create these courses, and you get to see more confusion within those worlds as well, right? This organization pulls to their own side, that organization pulls to their own side, and trainers are in the middle, confused as well. Of what do I do? What is the certification that I have to get? How do I really help people? And well, all of that craziness.
Yeah, and I'm sure that, anybody who's watching this can relate to that at some point of feeling, sadly, probably relating to the woman who was crying in the corner because she, didn't like lose 2 pounds, or I don't know if you said she didn't lose it or gained it or whatever it might be. Um, like what place have we gotten to in a culture where if you don't lose weight or you gain weight, like that breaks you down? Like to me, that seems just we so innocently completely lose track of what actually matters, but we
Exactly.
have so much heavy conditioning around weight loss and then achieving goals. And anyways, it's a whole different conversation. So my question, and what I'm curious about is, you saw all of that, you're like, whoa, like this is crazy. Also the confusion, like what's the right thing to do? It sounds like even as a professional, you were confused as to what to offer
Mhm.
people. And also, I think what's really important that you said too, which is people coming to you, looking to you as like a savior in some way. Like you're going to figure me out, you're going to know my life. And something that I talk about a lot is how we've really been conditioned to give our power away to other people. So we just look to other people and say, hey, give me the program, give me the plan that's going to make me better, that's going to fix me. And yet, you don't live that person's life. Like you're not in their body. You don't know what matters to them. You don't know what's important to them. Like, how is it possible to do that without us actually being really connected to and clear on what matters to us and how we feel, and being able to communicate that with you, and then seeing, can this person maybe work with me to, like, as a partnership versus versus just you give me the plan, I follow it, and I'm good. So after you saw this confusion, now I know that you're writing a book right now. I don't know if it's a working title, or if it's official, which is Navigating Fitness. And I
Yeah,
know that there's
correct.
an after to it. You can fill in a little bit more about that. Um, so I'm curious, after all of this, what approach did you end up finding? Like, what did you find then worked in terms of being able to support people? Which I'm assuming is, as we talked about, working more in partnership with them versus giving them the answer.
Right. Okay, the way I see it is, I mean, I understand it's a partnership as well, but I try to take my way out of the equation, right? As much as possible. Well, I mean, if you're in someone's life, you can't really pull yourself out of the equation completely. Even if, you're a client and you fire me, I've been there. I've influenced something on you, in the way you see fitness and wellness and exercise and movement and calories and all of these crazy things. Um, I try to be more like in the back seat, and I'm just helping you navigate this road because I've been through here as well. You know, I've suffered the anxiety and the depression and the pills and the pre-workout. And, you know, I got my little sort of addiction with a pre-workout kind of thing in the past. And experiencing that is and coming back to real life and seeing that this is not actually helping me, you know. Am I losing my track here? Kind of, or am I going? It's just that it's just so many things.
Well, so it sounded like maybe the word partnership felt a little bit like even more involved than you perceive it to be. So you see it as sort of, if I'm understanding, using the analogy of you sitting in the back seat, it's like the person, the client is driving and you're sort of giving maybe helpful direction.
Right, exactly. The book is not necessarily about even sort of like this is a system kind of or approach kind of book, right? I mentioned confusion, and I'm still confused. I'm navigating these waters, you know, and that's sort of like what the book is goes through. What I've known for this all of these years, and what I've sort of like figured out that works for me, I've just done it because I've been moving and swimming through it rather than going against it and just taking just one line. Um, and I'm just using that as an advantage that we can use to learn about ourselves and about fitness, right? When sometimes we say, well, I just figured out the approach and this is it. And researching for the book, at one point, I felt very like uneasy, thinking, well, this is it. This is what I found. This is what everybody has to do now. And, you know, shut up and do what I say. And to the point that I put the book down for a couple of months until I figured out a way to say it that it wasn't yet again one more approach, one more specific system. And so I went to look for philosophy more about this rather than technical approaches, right? How do we think about this? How do I engage in fitness and wellness as an individual? Because it's first and foremost about me, right? I'm this individual that's working on my own, on myself, but I'm also part of society, and I have an influence on how I you know how people see the things that I tell them they have to see. Um, so it was kind of crazy, and I just said, you know what, let me just see how navigating this and helping people, just saying, okay, I'm in this boat. Come with me until you learn how to, you know, help me with, you know, putting the working with the wind and the waves and all that, and then I'll help you build your own, but then you're on your own. This is not something that you have to continue. My path is not yours for the rest of your life. And that's it took me to realize that I don't always have to be there for you or in your equation. It took me realizing that maybe sometimes taking myself out of your life was going to be better for you because I was
Mm.
charging you $60 an hour and you didn't have that much money, so you weren't actually eating more vegetables because you were paying me to train you a couple days a week. Um, and so saying that I've sort of like figured out a specific way was it's not necessarily what I think of. It's just like I said, you know what? Okay, you're telling me you want to lose weight, right? And I've already studied all of this weight loss thing, and I know that if you do more and you know eat less and whatever. However, if you in your individual life you're not in that track, your personality is um, is more of sedentary, right? You like it, you like going to a hike, you like eating your cake, you don't like the gym, you don't like sweating all day. How can you I help you figure out how to implement all of these concepts that we sell everywhere, strength, endurance, weight loss, whatever, into your life as an individual. So it's kind of like a case by case kind of approach. If it's an approach, right, it's kind of like a case by case kind of.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like an approach to me, which is what you're doing is really kind of getting a sense of what is the lifestyle and what's important to the client, and then looking at ways to sort of help them. Well, I think essentially what I think of fitness is just to be able to increase your capacity to enjoy life. Because
Exactly.
if you're, like you said, if you have, you know, somebody's knee feels better, well, now they can go to Disney World with the grandkids and it's, you know, they can walk with them and it doesn't bother them. And that I always believe is the purpose of fitness, period. It's just,
Mhm.
how does it enhance your life? not how does it become your life or some, measurement that you're now like judging yourself against as to was I good or bad because I did only 30 minutes at the gym versus an hour, or I didn't go to the hard class, I went to the easy class. And so all of this judgment against ourselves. So fitness becomes stressful. It becomes this thing where you now feel good or bad about yourself. And you can kind of almost get a sense of identity from it too, which I think is dangerous because it really pulls you away again from what matters. And then if something happens where you can't maintain it anymore, there can be a real downfall from that. Like that you can feel really disappointed and sad. And some people go into a depression because their lives were just so revolving around the gym, and it moved to becoming their life versus supporting their life. So if I'm hearing you, you're saying that you just have a real conversation with people and say, hey, so like, what is it that you want, your life for your life? Like, how do you want to feel? Is there something hurting you? Like, do you want more stamina? Do you want more strength? And then based on your collective years of knowledge and experience, you're able to sort of give them some helpful advice. But as you were saying, you want them to be able to kind of run with it themselves, then to sort of feel confident in knowing they can lead their own fitness journey,
Right.
not needing to rely on you to in order to feel like they're adequate in taking care of themselves.
Exactly, exactly. And also about figuring out whether you really need to lose weight or not. For example, like I haven't trained people in like, since COVID, like person to person. I've done consulting and whatnot, but I've been working on other stuff still related to fitness and wellness, but not necessarily training people. But towards sort of like my last couple of clients and people that consulted me, I asked that question, like, do you really think you need to lose weight? Think about it, because you're calling me all desperate and you're thinking that this is something that is going to save your life. But here is what I've seen. I've seen people who have lost weight that have become miserable, like really miserable people. And, I've also seen people who gain a lot of weight that become miserable people, right? But it has nothing to do with the gaining or losing weight. It has to do with how you're feeling. And so I asked that question, and a couple people laughed at me because everybody's saying that you got to lose weight. So what kind of trainer are you? You're telling me that I don't need to lose weight, or you're telling me that I don't need more muscle. um well, for example, talking about experience, I worked in physical therapy, right? And sort of like it's kind of like a different approach to fitness, right? To being able to, it's going back to be able to. um and you get to see how people get better after surgeries and things like that, whether they lost weight or not, whether they gain more muscle mass or not. Sometimes it's not even exercise what gets them there. It's myofascial release, it's a stretch, it's a physical education kind of approach. Um, that sort of like create again a lot of confusion in me because I was seeing the fitness industry world saying weight loss, weight loss, weight loss, strength, strength, and nothing else. And run from calories and fat and sweets and everything, and run from your life in order to health at any cost kind of mentality. And then seeing all of this other world in which people are looking just to be able to walk again, and that didn't require hardcore training and all of these approaches. I'm not gonna mention names, right? But all of his cross trainings and specific yoga approaches or specific sort of like holistic approaches, it just required them relearning how to move as individuals. And sometimes I saw that this wasn't necessarily about the exercises that I was seeing in the gym. And seeing at the gym that people are getting hurt, going to a physical therapist to rehabilitate to go back to the gym, and it's a crazy cycle.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Getting injured at the gym, going to physical therapy so they can go back to the gym again and probably hurt themselves again.
Exactly. And it becomes a lifestyle, and some people it's that's why I say that it's still confusing. I wouldn't say that I figured anything out. I've been for some time in these waters, and I can teach some people how to navigate. So that's sort of like the approach of the book. Because some people take these injuries as as a trophy. Um, and you see, if you open Instagram, you look for hashtag fitness motivation, and you see all these people doing crazy stuff, or you see, bikinis and butts and chest and biceps and things like that. And it might be some sort of inspiration, but it's just taking everything out of context, right? Uh, and even in the world of physical therapy, having worked there, and I've always kept sort of like in touch with that area and helped my clients with rehabs and stuff. Um, it's like doing research and going to YouTube, for example, and hey, this is Dr. X or Y. I have a PhD in physical therapy, and they're teaching you the same exercises that you would learn at the gym. Or they would be shirtless and super hot, and their face in the camera, and it's like, okay, what are we talking about here? Um, and it's all about muscle, and it's all about testosterone, and it's all about pushing everything, pushing through life rather than just flowing, because
Yeah.
there's going to be a point at which you can't go any faster and any further, and at some point anyways you're going to go down the same waterfall that we're all going down. So and I saw that there is a lot of suffering and confusion in people. I've had people crying at me, men and women, and more women to be really honest. But I recognize in the book that we men suffer those things too, right? Generally, culturally, it is expected that we hold that. But I've been confused, I've been depressed, I've been addicted to a supplement, I've thought about, crazy thoughts because I haven't lost the weight, because I keep training and I don't feel stronger. Um, and me being a trainer, that I'm supposed to figure it out, and I'm this sort of like icon that people have to look for to help them. And sometimes I'm here depressed or anxious, or I don't want to be here in your house at 5 a.m. in the morning.
And then they probably feel like they have to get up at 5 a.m. because that's expected of them. So do they even want to be up at 5 a.m. too?
Exactly.
So,
I had a situation with someone that I was consulting, and it was the only time we could meet is at 5 a.m. So, sort of like a general hour in the fitness world. And at 5 a.m., this woman is crying by my side. I'm still sleeping. I'm still in my dreams, kind of waking up, and she is saying, I want to be a MILF. She's saying that, right?
wow.
And I'm like, holy cow. I haven't been trained for this, I haven't been
You're like,
trained
I'm the wrong trainer, first of all.
exactly, or what you're looking for is not training. And to be honest, she was hot. And so I'm thinking, how do I tell as a professional, how do I say something that doesn't make you feel like I'm sort of like hitting on you, but letting you know that really you believe me. Have you seen the classes have you been going to? And all the guys looking at you and all the other girls are looking like. And so and you're at 5 a.m. in the morning out of your bed,
Yeah.
away from your husband and your children, that you could have been really good there, relaxed without any worry. I didn't have to be here listening to this at 5 a.m. I'm still sleeping, and you're hitting me in the face with, you want to be a MILF? What? Are we talking about training and weight loss here and diet? And how did I
Yeah.
respond to that?
And so that's
No,
what that's what it comes down to for a lot of people when they feel like that is where their worth and value lies. And that
exactly.
sense of status and importance is going to be based on appearance. So the book that you're writing, Navigating Fitness, is really helping people to, like you said, navigate the waters of all of the information that's out there so that they
Right.
can be able to find out like what is it that's actually going to work for me. Like you said, you have the doctor who's telling you one thing, you've got the shirtless guy who's telling you another thing. Of course, we're in the information age where, well, like people like us can get on here on YouTube and just talk about our perspective. And on the one hand, that's really fantastic because back in the day, we would only ever get information that was sanctioned by publishers or on
True.
TV. And now everybody can share their own perspective and give information that can be really helpful. Of course, the flip side of that is it's like drinking water from a fire hose sometimes, or who do you believe? Which something again that I've been talking about a lot lately too, especially on my posts on Instagram, which is a lot of times people will take the approach and say, you know what, these people shouldn't be sharing this message because it's dangerous. It's I don't agree with the diet and whatnot. And my philosophy is that, I actually I don't like that approach. I don't like telling people to stop talking or to stop saying something, because I believe everybody has a right to be able to share their perspective and what they want to see. The danger lies in, we have been conditioned to give away our power to other people. So when we are relying on an expert or an authority, like we talked about earlier, tell me what I need to do, then we are at risk of following crazy restrictive diets or ways of eating or fitness that actually can hurt us. So we have to stop taking ourselves out of the equation. Like, we are the main part of the equation, and everything else is just an option. So
Exactly.
if we're disconnected from ourselves and we don't know what actually feels good to us, what is important to us, how do I actually listen to what matters to me and what I often refer to as my inner wisdom, then I'm not going to know what to follow, because I'll have no sense. I'll just be trying everything completely disconnected from what matters.
Exactly, 100%. Um, there's, I think, 4 points the general points that I touch in the book, which is learning, nurturing. I have the list here. I have a lot of things in my head. Sorry about that. So it's learning, nurturing, understanding, and navigating, right? You learn about movements, and it's all about exploring movements. I don't go to specific movements. It's about how you can play with. I love the concept of play, to sort of like figure yourself out. Like, if you are alone in your house, you know that you move totally differently than you would move at a shopping mall, right? And so how can you explore movement in those environments? How is it that strength is involved in there? How is it that balance, stability, your senses? Because if you go to necessarily, I attack a lot, the concept of the gym, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Um, but traditional systems are so focused on disconnecting every little aspect of your life. Your senses are trained in another way, your balance is another thing, and this is for old people, and this is for young people, and this is for the rich, and there's all of these crazy things pulling to their own side. That I think the focus should be on that, to learn movement as it comes, as it is, as humans, right? Biomechanically speaking, how is it that we move? And what we move into legs, right? And we walk upright, and we sit this way, and we move that way. And it doesn't matter, like, there's movements that it doesn't matter in what culture you live, they will be there. So how can you use those movements and just do more of those in your life? And it doesn't feel like a workout. You're just moving more. So you still have to clean your house, right? You still have to get that Christmas box that is over there. And so how can you be aware of how your movement and fitness is engaged in that activity, right? Without thinking of it as repetitions, right? If you're getting a box, you're not doing 15 of that. You're just getting it, putting it down. And still, I've having worked with older populations and sometimes with athletes, sometimes it's not all more about strength and training. Sometimes and any old coach could tell you these things, right? This is about observing. And it's like, you know what, you're not squeezing your butt a little more, when you're doing this technique. And all of a sudden, it didn't take 100,000 deadlifts, and it didn't take, burning more calories and whatever, or, getting something in your veins. It took an observation. And so I try to do that with my clients also. I'm very observational. I don't like assessments of repetitions and how many of this. It's quality over quantity,
Mhm.
better said. Um, and so you figuring that there's not always about something that you have to program, something that you have to follow every day, and also doing more research for the book and for work. I watch a lot of documentaries and a lot of videos about hunter-gatherers and different cultures and how they move. I love watching their traditional dances and how they work in the farms and these things like that. All of these movements are present in our life, whether we want it or not, because that's how we move. And so I've been looking for, how do we just use that? Let's just use that, right? Maybe a little more, but maybe a little less, right? You don't always have to be active and engaged, because if it's hurting you regardless of how good it is. Um, so it's about helping people getting a feel of that. How do you feel when you're moving? What is it that you think is hurting? Where is it coming from? And what can you do? Oh, sometimes, again, as I go more towards feeling your body, towards, touching, palpating yourself, and self myofascial release. because these are things that you can do on your own, and you can do it on you can go on vacation and you can do it. Or you go to Europe, perfect. You're going to, I don't know, Latin America, you bring a little lacrosse ball with you, and that's it. And you do your myofascial release. You don't need a trainer to stretch you. You don't need to go there and in a cruise ship hire a trainer not to enjoy your vacation because you got to train, in this pain and whatever. So it's about listening to the body. It's about creating more of a resilient kind of physical literacy.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. That really building that awareness again. So connecting to yourself. So I like how you're saying, and I think, it's something that even I was thinking of is, yeah, we're so trained to view activity as, doing X number of reps of this, or so structured. And yet you were like, oh, maybe you just need to squeeze your butt a little bit more when you're doing this thing. It makes
right.
a world of difference. But we're
Or listen up
so,
something.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's that I think is important. Um I know we're getting close to our time that we allotted for the conversation, and I want to be mindful of that. So
Right.
I did have a couple other questions for you. So I have two
Yeah.
more questions. And I'm gonna go with this one. This one first is, I know that you are from Puerto Rico,
Mhm.
and so you were saying that you have, different cultural experience. So I'm curious, what you find differs between the culture there versus the culture here, or sort of what you notice might be kind of same or different in your experiences cross-culturally.
Right. Well, in Puerto Rico, we have our own, ancient kind of culture, more like a Spanish African mix. But we're very Americanized because it's a U.S. territory, and we've been Americanizing since the 1800s, so it's a
Yeah.
long process, but yeah, we go and we speak Spanglish mostly now and things like that. Um, but it's been more about recognizing that different cultures see health and wellness differently, right? And different cultures have their own beliefs, right? You've experienced that. I know your husband is from Argentina, right? And so
Hmm.
it's sort of like a different world, and they see health differently, right? Here is all against meat. Argentina is all about meat, and what do we do? How do you reconcile all of these things? Considering that maybe let me see how these other cultures are doing it, right? I don't know if you watched this documentary, the Blue Zones. It's on Netflix. Very
Hmm.
interesting. And well, you get to see that in there, right? You get to see that there's people in Italy that drink wine every day and they eat their pasta every day, and some of them smoke cigars and cigarettes, and they're living better and healthier, and sometimes not necessarily even longer, but with better quality of life, right?
Right.
You still see an 80 something old, grandma with a cigarette in her hand and chopping grass, and she's like ready to party. And here we are at 40 complaining about back pain and having all of these diabetes and having all of these things. And yet we have more gyms, we have more diets, we have more fitness equipment. I have experience having worked in the fitness equipment industry. So I have that perspective as well. I used to work for, I'm not going to mention the name, but it's a lead company, right? One of this brand you will see in most gyms and in most hotels and in most cruise ships and stuff. Um, and you get to see in the documentaries like that people can live differently and still be healthy. They don't have to work out every day. They don't. And there is countries that you talk about, hey, let's go to the gym, and they'll look at you like, what? This is only certain people do that. Let's just walk. Let's go
Yeah,
have a snack and walk. And that walk itself is the physical activity. That
that's
hike
right.
itself is the physical activity. That swim with your partner in the river, having fun, of playing with your kid and just lifting your baby, that's the physical activity. And so the book goes on how to focus on all of these crazy concepts and bringing them down to earth to your individual reality and your individual life.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really key important piece. And it's something I talk about as well, which is what influences health is just so much more beyond food and exercise, which is the basically the only two things we're ever
Mm.
told. It's like, oh, just, eat better, exercise in this way, and then you're going to be healthy. And yet there's a plethora of different aspects of life connection to other people, being out in the sun, really enjoying what you do, having a purpose in life, like all of these things that have nothing to do with our physical body, but really impact our health positively. And with fitness culture, I mean, and let's be honest too, right? There's a huge industry that wants you to
Yeah.
believe that this is how you need to be spending your time in order to have your best life, where it could be like taking away from that or not the most enjoyable way to be spending your time.
Hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a part storytelling because I go into certain anecdotes of mine. I try to make it humoristic. There's a lot of seriousness in this. Like we're taking it too serious, and we're literally killing ourselves. And we judge our children, and we judge our parents, and we judge everybody if you eat like this or if you move like that. And I'm saying, let's take it. Let's take a couple steps back and just chill out. We're all floating in this river, and again, we're going down the same. We're all going to get old, and we're going to die at some point. And it's just until then, let's just live, well and able instead of, too fit. Because if you get lost into too fit, then you're not living. You're just working out.
That's right. That's right. I love that. I mean, I'm like, how many people would expect that from a trader? Do you sign up and you're like, oh, we're just gonna chill. Like, let's just relax here for a moment. Like, how about we like figure about how you enjoy your life and let's do that, you know?
Right.
Okay, so I'm gonna end it off with this one question that might be a like a little tougher question, but it's a good one because it's one I'm sure that you're probably familiar with that comes my way a lot, which is people who I focus more on working with the mental aspect and the emotional aspect of our health and well-being. Um, but I want to hear more kind of from your the physical side of it. So people who've been on, say, maybe an intuitive eating journey, or they've, kind of let go of all the craziness around the dieting, the exercises, or things have happened and they started to gain weight
Mhm.
and they're starting, to feel uncomfortable in their body. And now they're at a point though where, say, it's they're having trouble tying their shoe because now they have a bigger body size. And they'll say, well, see, this is why I need to focus on weight loss because I can't tie my shoe. So that's the thing getting in the way of me doing that. So I'm curious how you would approach something like that.
Okay. Movement can happen in any way. And you can figure out ways to, like, one of the things that not just humans, many species, we just look for survival, right? And this is instinctive. If you can't move one way, you move another way because you got to move, period. We're not a static organism. Even plants move. And so it's about how to figure out movement in that situation, right? It could be tying your shoelace, or it could be, you have a back pain when you wake up in the morning. Then how can you figure out movement while you also figure out to deal with that, which is not necessarily weight loss? Maybe your back is a little tight and tense and you can't lift your leg because that's the problem, right? Maybe you have a hip issue that maybe it's not necessarily related to weight loss. Maybe it's related to the workouts you used to say you do, all those squats and all those leg presses and all this non-stop moving segments of your body instead of the entire body. So it's figuring out how to reconnect your muscles and your fascial tissue and your movement as an individual, because everything is physical. I understand there's spirituality and all of these things, but that's part of a physical. We could not experience that if we were in this entire thing. Maybe in another existence, yes, right. But we would see it differently, not how we experience it in this life and world through our senses in our body. And so it's just figuring that out. Okay, right now, I can't tie my shoelaces, lift my leg. Um, and unfortunately, we focus a lot on the symptom of things a lot and not on the actual issue. And so we get to easily turn off our senses and we don't feel the back pain then. It's all, oh, it's just the belly, and maybe it's not that. Maybe it's many other things. So how do you figure your movement out while you then focus on, if your goal and if you want to be able to then tie your shoelaces this way, then let's figure out a way, or you figure out a way to get there, right? But it doesn't necessarily come in the form of a workout or a chart or it comes with thinking about these things and feeling your body at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. And actually, that's something too that I never even really considered was, is it because there's tightness in the low back that prohibits this movement, but we don't know that. And we're like, oh, all I noticed that's different is my belly got bigger. And so that's the culprit. And yet it's so much more holistic than that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yet
Yeah.
I've met people that they say, I stopped working out and I feel great. My back's not hurting anymore. So there
Right.
you go. I stopped
Right.
the diet. I don't have constipation anymore. I'm not tired anymore. And so, it's an
Yeah.
individual journey and sort of like pulling out one specific system and saying, this is it. This changes, your life changes every year you turn, 40 something or 60 something or 90 something. So how each time you figure it out, navigate it.
That's right. That's right. And I know I said I wanted to stop this, and I'm just recalling the story for myself was one of the biggest differences I noticed in my body after I stopped restricting and I gained weight was I couldn't bend over as far in certain yoga postures as I used to be able to do. And my mind made a lot of story about that. So there was a lot of judgment about it. This shouldn't be happening. This is wrong. I miss the old way of doing it. Like,
Right.
really, it was all of these ideas I had about how the movement should be different, how it should be like it was before, that colored my whole experience. Otherwise, without any of that judgment, it's like, oh, so I just don't bend over as far. Like,
Do you need that?
I- do I even need to bend? Like, yeah, and why do I care to bend over as far? Because often too in yoga, it can be, oh, I'm better if I can get my forehead to my shins or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
it's just, and I mean, and anyways, I can go on about because was certified as a yoga teacher, but it's like that's not even what yoga was about. But anyways, like yoga got taken over by the fitness industry.
Right.
But I think it's so right. I often, and I think you kind of see it the same way, as I view focusing on weight loss as like, if anything, weight loss might be a symptom or I don't want to say consequence because that's like a negative tone to it, but,
Mhm.
and
A result.
not even a symptom and that it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's just like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like the thing that just kind of maybe happens when you're making other changes, but
Right.
it's not the thing that's the cause of anything. If
Exactly.
I think we're saying the same thing, right? It's not the root.
Exactly.
So if we're wanting to feel better, if we're wanting to move better, then we got to get to the root of it. Like and I'm sure you hear this a lot, which is, oh, my joints hurt. I got to lose weight. It's obviously the weight that's the problem. And yet we know, and that people can be in larger bodies and not have any joint pain and have really strong joints, and people can be in smaller bodies and have joint pain. That's not the cause of the joint pain. It's
Exactly.
just might create some, if you have more weight, it might create some pressure on the joints, but there was something then was off there to begin with, if you're feeling that pressure.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it could be anything. It could be tiredness. It could be stress. It could be one thing. And I could sort of like this leave this as a tip, right? So if I know we are
Yeah.
about
I
done
know. I
time,
know. It's like, we'll wrap it up.
but I keep seeing a lot of systems, a lot of methods, and the new thing and the most revolutionary thing, and this is what's going to save the industry, and this is. And I'm seeing again all of these hunter gatherers that still exist. It's not like we're going back in time. And from there, that's the most fundamental way of movement. Like they don't invent anything. They just move to hunt and live and all that. And so that's a very good way to see. Okay, so all of these people, one, they are not having all of these diabetes and heart issues and blah 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 that we're having here. Um, and yet they don't have a diet specific. They don't name it
Right.
a diet, right? And also they don't name their movement. They don't say, you know what, let me just do a couple of push-ups before we go hunting. They just go hunting, and
Right.
they figure out environments and ways to move depending on the environment. So we can also do that too in our lifestyles. What's my environment, and how can I move more around it rather than through it, and rather than against it, right? Fitness
Yeah.
industry is about going against resistance, and I take a more, you know what? Yeah, it's an approach. I take a more of a physical education approach. It's about learning. It's about learning about yourself. And so if you observe from that very fundamental way of moving that these hunter-gatherers have to the most advanced certification and training systems that we have, there's somewhere out there for you, for each individual. It's just that it doesn't look like everybody else. And it's a big ocean. So you have to learn to navigate. Even, professional swimmers drown, and professional, people who
Right.
have both drowned. And so I haven't figured how to outlive life and how to, not be old ever. And it's just, what I figured is that, this is what's going to happen at some point, right? And until then, and it could be anything. It could be that I die. It could be that I wake up tomorrow with a cancer. It could be that I get a stroke. And it doesn't matter how fit you are. Everybody with anybody can really go there. And so it's about living well, and movement is important for us. And yes, eating well is important for us. It's just excessively, it also hurts. And so
That's
it's
right.
about balance, and again, it's a big ocean. So it's about learning on your own. I'm giving pointers. I'm saying, hey, you build your boat with this. And if this doesn't work, hey, check this other thing out. Figure out your eating, for example. And I have something that is called the fridge merchandising experiment. And it's sort of like a nutritional tip, but it's not nutrition. It's just rearranging your fridge. It's just like merchandising. You pick up things according to what you see first, right? And so you want to eat more vegetables, then that's what you put in your fridge so that you see that first. And as you go through that air, through that wave, you'll figure out how to get a handle of it, not to control it, not to manage anything. At one point, you will figure out and say, okay, this is how I really eat every day. And I want to add more vegetables. These are the vegetables that I like. This is what I always like. My cravings, I don't have to throw them away. I'm gonna put them in the drawer where I put the vegetables that they wilt and die. Well, let me just put the snacks there, and I don't see them as much. So you don't have to eliminate anything out of your life, and you can still enjoy your life. It's just that if you want to eat more in a certain way, then arrange your fridge in a way that what you see first is what you think is healthier, right?
That's yeah, actually that's a really good tip. I was just thinking about that. I was as you were doing that, I'm like, yeah, my vegetables are usually in the drawer and I never see them and I just go to like whatever's in front of my
Right,
face.
right.
So that's
Nutrition,
really
I think,
good.
yeah. When it comes to nutrition, I used to be a chef, and so I go a lot by flavor. Don't take anything but flavor, and it can work because it's one of our senses. Taste is very important in our health and in our fitness, in our life. And the fitness industry and the diet industry and the motivational industry is all about against the taste of
Oh
food, of life,
yeah.
of everything.
Yeah, they've obliterated that. Well, I think you have an approach that, of course, I totally agree with. I think is like refreshing, unfortunately, in our client. I unfortunately I say it in a way that I just am like, gosh, like can't isn't this just maybe like how this should be kind of standard way of approaching health for most people? Like you might have the athletes who want a certain way, but that's very, specific. We're talking about in order to get access to fitness and nutrition information for just the everyday person who just wants to enjoy their life, I
Exactly.
think you have a really great approach. So, of course, this went longer than I thought it would, as it usually does, because we really get talking about these things and I love it. But I know you have again a book coming up. Is there anything else that you would like to share of how people can reach you or where they can get more information? How do you get your message out there to people? How do you work with people?
Yeah. Well, I have a newsletter in Substack, and it's just Juan Baez. It's just I could send you the link, or type it. But it's my name .substack.com, juanbaez.substack.com, and the newsletter slash podcast is called. It's in Spanish. It's in bilingual space. So it's vertientes y tangentes. That goes for slopes and tangents. And within that, I have a section called Navigating Fitness, in which I explore fitness and wellness and physical education in different ways, right? I'm working on a series on the senses, on the human senses, right? And my approach there is just learning through history. So I'm exploring how the Mayans used to see the senses, see the world, and
Mm.
let's see if we can play this how. For example, for them, smell was very important. And how can you engage in smell? Go out there and get in the woods and close your eyes and see how far you can smell, what you can smell, or how far you can hear, um, without it's looking like, okay, step one, Close your eyes.
Yeah.
That's your way.
Right,
I
right. Well,
try to
that's
put
cool.
philosophy, like, yeah, I try to put philosophy and sort of like storytelling and personal stories as well, because I think there's a lot of technicality in physical education in general. That's where I put fitness sort of like under the umbrella of physical education. Anything that is movement and that teaches movement is physical education. And so you can learn things in many, many, many different ways. And I just think that the approaches we're taking, it's just confusing. It's more about training than learning. It's more about convincing you that this is it, rather than, hey, maybe you can check these other options. And if this one doesn't work, then let me teach you how to navigate this so you can find your options on your own. Um,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, yes, well, I'll put those links then in the description section of the video on YouTube here so that people can find you if they want to learn more about what you have to share. So it was really good to talk with you on. I'm glad that you're out there doing this work and helping to bring
Thank
some
you.
sanity to the insane world of fitness and dieting. And I look forward to seeing when your book comes out.
Awesome. All right.
And
Thank you
and
for, for
I think I figured out the problem. I think I just needed to record this in gallery view on Zoom. I think that
oh,
was the issue. So if anybody was like, I know what the problem was, I think I just thought of it. But until next time.
all right.
Thank
Awesome.
you,
Thank you.
Juan. Bye.
Have a good one.